Hey guys, welcome to another video. Okay, here's the old piece. This is from about a year ago. This is the piece we're going to be redrawing. I did this during quote-unquote Inktober last year. As you can see, there's a lot of watercolor, but that's what I did it last year. So it's been about a year, as October has just started now. And here's the old tiny sketch. As you can see, it was very small originally, next to the new sketch that we're going to be working from today. So while some things have changed, some things have also stayed the same in the process, and we're gonna talk about that. I also wanted to take the opportunity in this video to talk to you guys about some things that I have learned in the past year, and also some things I'd like to improve on in the year to come, we'll say. So I lost a little bit of footage here, unfortunately, but as soon as I started jumping into this piece, I was having so much fun. Like, I had been working with gouache a lot, which is amazing and fun, but there is something relaxing and soft and a bit more delicate about watercolors than gouache. Like, I feel like I have to fight with gouache to activate the paint or to get the right consistency. There's just a lot more mixing and stirring, and watercolors just tend to be a bit gentler, which was nice. So it's really nice to get to do both and switch between the two. Before I jump into the three things I want to improve on most, I just want to talk a little bit about this piece. I'm going to start with the red values, so blushy areas or areas where there would be a lot more blood flow, and then I'm going to work into adding warmth and a bit more like life and light to the skin. So I'll do yellow after the red values, and then after that I'll use bluish values to lay in some shadows. And this working with primaries like this doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to get the same skin tone every time, as you'll see, because you can vary the tone and the specific shade to get a wide range of skin tones still, but I really like this process. So you'll see that laid out as we go through this video here. So the first thing that I feel like I want to improve on over time is something we've already talked about a little bit, which is values. I'd really like to learn to be less cautious when it comes to including a wider range of values in my pieces. I'm always afraid to go darker. Like I start with these light values, and then I'm so afraid to make things dark because I'm afraid that they'll be too dark. I think one way that I can improve on this, and if you have the same struggle, hopefully this tip will be useful for you as well. If you struggle with your values staying too light and you're afraid to make things dark, start in a place where you know the value is going to be darker. For example, I knew that his skin, or his hair rather, was going to be darker. So if I had started with the skin, I would have had a basis for a darker value. And then, did I say hair? If I'd started with the hair? I think I said skin. Anyway, if I'd started with the hair, I would have had a better basis of a darker value already in place. And then I probably wouldn't have been as timid about adding darkness to his skin. So what I actually ended up doing was, after the yellow values here, I started adding some shadows, like I started adding some blue values, and was immediately worried that they were going to be too dark, but in my brain I knew that they weren't. So I left the skin partially finished and moved on to the hair so I would have a darker value to work with. So you guys are going to see that happen. But I really love the process. So here I am timidly starting with those shadows and just not letting things get dark enough. But anyway, yeah, so I would really like to become more confident in laying in darker values. And a big part of that is just going to be either being more confident and knowing my ranges better, but to start, I think it would be better to lay in darker values first. Like, I see a lot of artists who will put in, now from watercolors you have to work light to dark, but if you start in a different section of the piece, like if I'd started here in the hair and done that first, it would have been darker and I wouldn't have been as afraid in the skin. Anyway, so first thing, values. Next thing, composition. And now these three things are all going to be things that were particular struggles in this piece, but they apply to my art overall, and this piece just kind of helps me to think about those things. So next is composition. So in the original piece, it was basically just the character in the middle and then some watercolor in the backgrounds, like green and yellow. And I wanted to kind of up the composition for this, but I never plan compositions ahead of time. Like, I never planned backgrounds specifically ahead of time. So I knew I wanted the character to be off to the one side in this piece, which I did. But I didn't plan for the background. I always just go, I'll get to the background when it's time for that, and I don't need to plan it out. And really, that just makes me frustrated with backgrounds, and it makes me not want to do them, but I really, really need to. And I heard someone say once that the best way to effectively do a background is to think of the background as a character, especially if you really like to draw characters like I do. So if I had thought of the character as one subject and the background as another subject or character, then I would have been in a better mentality to think of how these two characters would interact with one another and how they would fit together in the piece. So I think that if I start to think that way about backgrounds, I can execute them more effectively and make them look better and all that fun stuff. I really had fun with his hair, by the way. It was really fun to kind of put in these different layers and work with these different brush strokes that were a bit organic and kind of strandy, and that was really fun. So with the hair, we'll talk about that for a second. I did like a base value of like a nice sagey olive green that was mostly undersea green by Daniel Smith. I really like that color. And then I did a darker, sort of cooler green, and then lightened it up with a warmer, I think this is like quinacridone gold mixed with that undersea green, and I really like the warmth and the warmth of the hair. It's very luminous, and I really enjoyed that. I tried to keep the pose mostly the same as like a draw this again sort of thing. I tried to keep the pose pretty similar, and another big thing that helped was I actually used a reference this time. So that, that was really useful. Anyway, composition. Yeah, I'd like to think more about putting the two characters, the background and the subject together, and then thinking about how they work together. And then, of course, getting into more elaborate backgrounds, period, like environments and things like that. I'd like to do that in this coming year. The third and probably most important aspect that I'd like to get better at is simply to draw more and draw easier. So what I mean by that is every time I sit down to do a piece recently, it didn't used to be this way when I first started drawing. I feel like before I can draw anything, I need the perfect reference and I need the perfect idea, the perfect color scheme before I can even start drawing. And the result is that my pencil often never even touches the paper because I spend so much time thinking about, I don't have the perfect idea yet, I can't start drawing. Even though drawing is part of creating that perfect idea. Or it doesn't even have to be perfect, even if you end up with a final piece, like this one, for example. It doesn't feel perfect to me, but it's a massive improvement from a year ago, and that's really exciting to me. So, real quick, jumping back to the piece, I put in some more blue values and then thought that his face was looking a bit too blue and a little bit lifeless, a little bit cold. So I'm going back and adding more of my warmer values. So a little bit more of that red blushy color. And then I'm pretty sure I went over the whole thing with a nice warm yellowish color because his skin is a bit more tanned. So anyway, that's the process that we're working on here. And after I went in and added some more shadows, yeah, I get blocked up before every piece. Here's me being hesitant and being too afraid to add proper lighting to the piece. Anyway, I get so blocked up before I even start that I don't start. And maybe you can sympathize with that sort of issue. I feel like everything has to be so perfect that I don't even start sometimes. And the times when I do get past that, it's amazing because the result is I just scribble. I just start scribbling, I start drawing, I start warming up my hand and my arm, and it doesn't have to be nice, it doesn't have to be perfect. I usually don't even erase during this period, even if it's a mess. And it doesn't even have to be the final piece, it could be anything. Just scribble and start drawing and loosen up and get past that initial block of starting to draw. And that's so, so helpful for me, is to just start drawing, to start working, to anything at all, and just get moving and just drawing, period. And I want to draw more. Like, I want to have more sketches and more concepts and more practice, because really, if every time I draw I'm planning to sit down and create a finished piece, I'm just going to disappoint myself. I'm going to spend too much time on one thing. Like, if I spent, multiple hours on this piece, well, I spent a lot of time drawing one face when I could have drawn dozens of less refined faces, and that's kind of the point of like iterative drawing, which is drawing the same thing over and over again with the intention of improving each one. And that's, a lot of people will talk about how that's a good way to improve your art quickly, is to draw smaller, looser versions of the same thing over and over again, not necessarily just scribbling and saying, okay, I made 20 circles, that's 20 eyes, why am I not better? No, the intention is to actually try to get better. Now I'm moving on to the background here, which was overall pretty disappointing, to be honest. There were some parts of it that were fun to work on, and again, if I planned out backgrounds ahead of time, I would be mentally prepared for the time that they take. But what ultimately ended up happening with this one was that I didn't really have a plan ahead of time, so I decided I wanted to do some kind of planty thing. And when I started doing that, even from this point where I was just sketching it, even when I started sketching it, I was like, oh my goodness, this is taking a long time. And I was already discouraged with it. And when I don't want to work on a part, then I'm trying to get it done as soon as possible, and it's not as good as it could be. And with the background, I was like, it doesn't really matter what color the background is, as long as the colors are kind of harmonious, and as long as I don't do yellow and green again like I did last time, that'll be good. And then somehow it's yellow and green. I don't know how it happened. I put in this green value, there was like a super light bluish teal value at the top, and then I just put yellow on. I don't know what I did. It's like I made the background the same colors as the original piece, which I guess for comparison's sake is fine, but I don't know why I did that. So I'm painting over my sketch of the background now, and then I went in and just, added the foliage. So my original intention was that it would be a fern sort of thing, and I'm including a lot more footage than I normally would in videos, so this one's going to be a couple minutes longer. I hope you guys don't mind. And of course you can watch whatever parts you want. Let me know if you're watching this part right now. Are you watching this right now? Hey, if you're watching this part right now, then leave a comment and let me know your favorite flavor of ice cream. Or if you don't like ice cream. I don't know. What's your favorite flavor of ice cream? If you're watching this right now, let me know what your favorite flavor of ice cream is so I know who's watching this. I mean, I know this video is already, usually my videos are like this long and that's it. So tell me about your favorite flavor of ice cream. Anyway, the reason I'm including this part now is I just wanted to kind of show you the length of this process. And how different it was when I started compared to when I got down to the bottom of the plants. So you saw how I was laying in those colors initially, and then as I went down, I basically just wet the sketch area of the plant and put in some really wet colors, loose colors, and then when it was dry, I went in with a darker value, and it created this really nice contrast in some places where it just gave this really light, feathery look to some of the plants, which I like, but overall I don't feel that it was composed very well. So it's not super effective, in my opinion. I don't know. It was fun. I really enjoyed working on it, but I feel like it could have been executed much better, especially if I had, planned it ahead of time. Here's a look at what that kind of looks like overall. And it took a long time. Like, for some reason, oh my goodness, it took a long time. And ta-da! So I'm really proud of the progress that I've been able to make in the past year. I don't know, it's really fun. I'm enjoying painting a lot more. I feel like I've learned a lot about watercolors, and here you can see the difference. Before I was basically just laying in single values. I wasn't thinking about different areas of the skin or anything like that. But I feel like I've made a lot of progress, and it's really exciting. I hope I talked about everything I meant to talk about. I don't know. Thanks for watching, guys. I really do appreciate it. It's been a fantastic year. I am doing Inktober this year. If you want to see those sketches, you can head over to my Instagram account, and I'll probably do like a sketchbook tour at the end to show you everything. See you next time, guys. Bye.